This Korean drama will totally keep your eyes glued to the screen. Imagine a wealthy heir's first day at work. He doesn't just ride a fancy car like everyone else. He arrives by helicopter and lands in the coolest way possible. As soon as he lands, the heir looks up at the towering building, straightens his limited edition jacket, and strides in with an ultra-commanding presence. Walking into his rival company, Martin reminds himself that even without his dad's help, he can still succeed. No sooner does he get inside than he finds a seat. Martin wonders if this is what it feels like to be a regular employee. Just then, a colleague comes to talk to him. He remembers that in a new environment, he needs to get to know everyone. But since he habitually keeps his hands clasped behind his back, when he chats, it kinda looks like he's bossing others around. Just to succeed on his own path, Martin gave up his billion-dollar inheritance to work as an employee. His goal is to learn and prove to his parents that he's not useless. The next day, he doesn't parachute from a plane anymore. Instead, he takes the bus like the office workers. Seeing the crowded bus, he realizes he'd never get to experience this kind of life. Later, he presses the stop button, but the driver tells him not to bother pressing it again. That's when he remembers he's actually the one who owns the bus. Taking advantage of the free time, Martin quietly heads to the vending machine. His coworkers sneakily glance over as Martin opens his wallet, which is full of large bills. He reads the notice that the vending machine only accepts small change. He starts frantically pressing buttons, but his coworkers misunderstand, thinking he's broke but still wants coffee. Suddenly, Martin looks up at the sky and tells his parents he's okay. His coworkers panic, assuming his parents have passed away. They feel sorry for him, not knowing his wealthy parents are actually watching him via drone. After work, the secretary comes to pick up Martin. This scene is accidentally seen by director Kim. The secretary wants Martin to come along, but he doesn't want to. Martin pulls out his wallet and asks the secretary to exchange his large bills for small change. After the secretary takes the money, Martin turns away. Director Kim still insists on giving him a ride home. Seeing this, Director Kim wrongly assumes this orphaned guy got caught up with some shady crowd. As a senior at the company, Director Kim can't just stand by. He grabs a handful of dirt, steps forward, and throws it at the secretary. Then he even hugs Martin and leaves with him. He comforts Martin and takes him to a snack bar. Seeing the young guy not eating anything, Director Kim finds it really weird. Martin says he's never eaten these kinds of foods before, making Director Kim think he can't afford to buy food. Director Kim feels so touched, he almost cries. He feels Martin is just too pitiful. Then Director Kim asks where Martin lives. Martin says he lives in a small house. Hearing this, Director Kim sincerely advises him that since he's still young, it's okay to live a little rough. The first time Director Kim came to Seoul, he lived in a cramped place too, but now he's moved to a bigger apartment. Martin shows he's learned a lot. He returns to his small room and looks around, realizing he still has to work harder than the seniors in the company. The next day, Martin tries street food for the first time. Unexpectedly, just one bite surprises him with the amazing flavor. Martin quickly asks the owner if there's a secret recipe behind this delicious dish. The owner says all it takes is a bit of skill and hard work. Martin quietly nods, taking note. Suddenly, a drunken girl named Michelle stumbles in. The secretary quickly tries to stop her, saying this place is reserved. But Michelle ignores him, pushes him away, then sits down and tells the owner to bring her some chicken gizzards. But all the chicken gizzards were already ordered by Martin. Seeing Michelle drunk and going wild, the secretary rushes over and tells her to go home. Michelle grabs him, so he hurriedly picks up a table and puts it between them. She sits right in front of him, almost scared to tears. But the aroma of the chicken gizzards in Martin's mouth catches Michelle's attention. When Michelle slowly moves closer, Martin has to cover her mouth with a piece of chicken gizzard. The piece that fell to the floor saves him. After finishing the chicken gizzards, when Martin saw Michelle slowly moving closer, he had to cover her mouth with a chicken gizzard. The gizzard piece fell to the ground but saved Martin. After eating the gizzard, she arrived at the company and saw Martin there. She didn't expect him to be the new employee. Michelle quickly hid her face behind her hair, silently hoping he wouldn't recognize her. Unexpectedly, Martin called her name. Michelle didn't have time to wonder how he knew her name. Panicked, she covered her hair and looked for an excuse to escape, but Michelle clumsily knocked over something. The scene before Martin made him sure he hadn't mistaken her. Michelle was definitely the girl from last night. Michelle almost forgot everything, but she still remembered a certain set of lips. Michelle panicked, thinking she had kissed Martin, but she wasn't sure if it was real or just a dream. Her best friend said she had a way to confirm it. She told Michelle, "Michelle, sit right in front of me." Then she took her work ID and waved it in front of Michelle. After snapping her fingers, Michelle immediately fell asleep. Who would have guessed their dream would get so intense it felt like they were about to have a baby? Her best friends were shocked hearing how close the two had become, practically living together. In her dreamy haze, Michelle sat up and puckered her lips forward, then immediately got a kiss and woke up. Tonight, the whole group went out to eat. Michelle worried Martin would recognize her, so she decided to wear a mask. This made her boss furious. He scolded Michelle and ordered her to take it off. As soon as Michelle took off the mask, she grabbed the menu and pretended to order, but her coworkers snatched it to order first. Left with no choice, Michelle raised a beer in front of her. Martin reached out to move the beer aside, but their hand strength was so different. She acted like nothing had happened. He always remembered her. Then Martin called out Michelle's name loudly, almost giving her coworkers a clue. Flustered, Michelle followed him outside. Unexpectedly, Martin pulled a letter out of his pocket. Michelle suddenly felt embarrassed, thinking it was a love letter, so she happily accepted it before taking a taxi home. Eagerly, she opened the letter, but it detailed the story from the roadside diner that night. It wasn't some random letter, it was a compensation bill Martin made her pay. She had thought Martin would support her, but instead, she unconsciously started crying. She bit her fist now she owed money and couldn't pay it back. So Michelle decided to help Martin with chores to pay off her debt. Just as she finished and got ready to leave, a lightning bolt struck. Suddenly, Michelle's stomach growled loudly from hunger. She felt a bit embarrassed, didn't expect that to happen right then. But Martin didn't care at all. He even smiled and invited her to stay for dinner for free. Why say no? He clapped his hands, but no one answered. The atmosphere suddenly went quiet. He embarrassingly remembered this wasn't his home, so no one was coming with food. So they decided to order fried chicken to eat at home. Michelle said she wanted to diet, but her hand still grabbed a piece of fried chicken. Watching Michelle eat so messily drove Martin, who's obsessed with cleanliness, crazy. He couldn't help but ask, "Do you want a napkin?" Surprisingly, she wiped her mouth with her hand. Martin put on gloves and pulled out a tissue. He was serious, like performing surgery. Suddenly, Martin looked at Michelle's face, and his heart raced for no reason. At that moment, the door opened. Martin's mother came to visit. His mom found the scene a bit unusual. Michelle quickly reacted, saying she was just Martin's coworker. Then Martin told Michelle that once she finished packing, she could leave. Unexpectedly, Martin's mom overheard the word packing. She got even more surprised. She thought they'd started living together, and her son wanted to move out because of this girl. She grabbed a bottle and splashed it toward Michelle. Martin looked at the spilled liquid on the floor, wanting to lose it. But his mom wasn't letting up. She started targeting Michelle. Michelle dodged left and right. Suddenly, Martin stood up and blocked the splash for her. Looking at his solid back, she almost teared up. Michelle suddenly thought Martin was extremely handsome, but then he said he was just worried his carpet would get wet and start to smell. Then he quickly ran to the side. He grabbed a rag and started mopping the floor. Martin's mom was furious and told the secretary to buy kimchi and bring it over. When Martin heard kimchi, he threw the rag aside. Michelle felt touched again because this man was even angry on her behalf. Angry for her, he looked so classy. But then he angrily said that the kimchi smell was really hard to clean. At that point, Martin's mom seemed to calm down. She sat on the sofa and apologized to Michelle. Then she ordered the secretary to bring out a pack of tissues and told Michelle to take it. She hurriedly waved her hand to refuse, but her body unconsciously leaned forward. When his mom heard the words, paying debt, she jumped up. She thought Michelle was a gold digger trying to get close to her son for money. So she sent the secretary to buy more kimchi. Under his mom's pressure, Martin could only tell her the truth. Martin looked at Michelle with a gentle expression and then asked Michelle. Then she turned to her son, scolding him for making this girl do hard work, just over some pocket change. So how can Martin become the head of the power corporation? This question immediately caught the mother's attention. He couldn't reveal his identity to his mother, so he took a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. Unexpectedly, the handkerchief had the Power Corporation logo on it. Talking about this, she had just picked it up off the ground. Martin quickly took his own handkerchief and handed it to his mother, saying, "Mom, don't just pick up stuff off the ground and use it anymore." Unexpectedly, this handkerchief also had the company logo. The two of them struggled hard to fool her. Then everyone went outside together. Martin's mother, out of habit, invited Michelle to sit in the security guard's car to go home. Michelle was surprised by how fancy the car was. Seeing this, Martin's mother quickly said it was a used car she bought. She actually had 3 of them. Martin was helpless, looking at his mother, silently begging her to keep quiet. Martin hurriedly pulled Michelle away. After the car left, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hopefully Martin's identity isn't exposed yet. Unexpectedly, the car suddenly stopped, and someone asked Martin if he was from the Power Corporation. It turned out the driver had already told her everything. Martin felt utterly hopeless about his own family. Meanwhile, somewhere else, these two were hugging just because they were scared of spiders. They lost balance and fell flat on their faces. Right then, another girl appeared. Seeing them, the girl immediately looked embarrassed. The guy panicked and hurriedly pushed the clingy girl off him, but it was too late. "Oh no, babe." When Dan decisively turned and left, Sean could only helplessly watch the woman he loved for 5 years walk away. It turned out Sean and Natalie are co-workers sharing the same office. Coincidentally, they became neighbors. That's how the misunderstanding earlier happened. The next day at work, Sean pulled Natalie aside and begged her to explain the misunderstanding from yesterday to Helen. Natalie got furious after hearing it. "What do your love quarrels have to do with me?" But Sean wasn't ready to let it go that easily. He said it was because Natalie suddenly jumped up. That's why the misunderstanding happened. Natalie wanted to explain, so she opened her shirt to show Sean she was really allergic to spiders. But just then, Helen walked in and said, "Sorry to bother you two." After saying that, Helen turned and left. Sean wanted to follow and explain, but it was too late. This made Sean think something. Suddenly, Natalie moved to live next to him, and even started taking her clothes off in front of him. Could it be that Natalie likes him? When Natalie saw Sean's delusions, she got super mad. She didn't want to say more and just left. Natalie found Helen and explained that she had nothing to do with Sean. but Helen said she didn't misunderstand at all. Natalie wondered why Helen suddenly left yesterday. Helen said it was because her boyfriend told her he was free. Natalie was surprised and asked, "If you already have a boyfriend, then who's Sean?" Helen smiled and said Sean is a good guy who always invites her out to eat or grab coffee. He even takes out the trash and cleans up dog poop at her place. Natalie felt totally helpless hearing this and thought explaining was pointless. She went back to the office and told Sean that Helen didn't misunderstand anything. Sean finally smiled. Natalie bluntly said Helen doesn't have feelings for him at all. Sean got really angry, thinking Natalie was purposely bad-mouthing Helen, because Natalie likes him. Natalie really didn't want to say another word to Sean, wanting to prove Helen's feelings for him. So that night, Sean decided to act. Sean dressed up in a teddy bear costume and approached Helen. He handed her a bouquet of flowers, then got ready to kneel down and confess. Just then, Helen's boyfriend arrived. Helen suddenly thought, could the ring be in this teddy bear? Sean quickly denied it. Unexpectedly, the ring box fell to the ground. Helen's boyfriend saw it and asked Sean if he was selling the ring. Then he looked at Sean's open hand and guessed the ring's price was 8.8 million won. He was about to take out money to pay. Sean turned and ran away, while Helen picked up the ring. She saw the initials of Sean's name on it and understood everything. Unexpectedly, the ring box fell to the ground. Helen's boyfriend saw it and asked Sean if he was selling the ring. Then he looked at Sean, spread out fingers and guessed the ring was worth 88,100,000 won. Helen's boyfriend was about to pull out money to pay, but Sean turned and ran away, while Helen picked up the ring and saw the initials engraved on it, understanding something. The next day, Helen pulled Sean aside and said she wanted to talk to him. Sean sat on a chair, panicked and worried, but Helen revealed the ring that Sean had given her. Then Helen held Sean's hand and said she already had a boyfriend, but it was okay, she could love him too. After thinking it over, the next morning Sean came to see Helen again. He asked how many boyfriends she really had, when Helen raised her hand full of rings. At that moment, 4 men walked in together. Helen smiled and said, "Tonight, the 2 of us should go have dinner together." Sean was truly shocked. Martin was about to threaten Michelle when she found out he was from a wealthy family. No matter what Michelle heard yesterday, she had to forget it all. Unexpectedly, while Michelle was swatting a mosquito, she accidentally cracked the table surface, frightening Martin. The harsh words he had prepared suddenly didn't come out. Martin waited until Michelle left. Then he immediately pulled out his phone to call someone. Michelle rushed in, cut off his call, and told him that even if she didn't say anything, he couldn't hide his identity because his wealthy aura was so obvious. Sooner or later, everyone would find out. She promised to keep this secret. Under this pressure, Martin had no other choice. Then they went to lunch together. Michelle noticed Martin eating yogurt without licking the lid, so she spoke to him seriously. She said, "It's obvious you're from a wealthy family." Then she started demonstrating for him. Martin looked a bit embarrassed but tried his best not to reveal his identity. Just then, Director Kim walked by, frowned, and told Martin to stop licking. Feeling sorry for Martin, Director Kim gave him his own yogurt. Martin didn't understand what had happened. After work, Martin and Michelle happily sat eating barbecue with their close friends, when unexpectedly, Martin sat right behind them. After eating, Michelle took a walk, but she kept feeling like someone was following her. Michelle vowed to Martin that this time she wouldn't get drunk, so she definitely wouldn't reveal his secret. Martin breathed a sigh of relief, turned, and got into the secretary's car to leave. But before he could buckle up, he saw Michelle standing on the main road, wanting to ask if anyone knew who the successor of Power Group was. Martin got furious, then turned to his secretary and asked if there was a way to make Michelle disappear from the earth. Suddenly, Michelle rushed up, startling Martin and the secretary. Michelle really was someone you couldn't trust. The next day at work, Martin unexpectedly met Ghost in the elevator. When the elevator arrived, Director Kim bowed to greet the chairman, then saw Martin. Martin and the chairman were taking a photo together. Director Kim angrily called Martin to the office and asked if he was sane enough to dare take a photo with the chairman. Seeing Director Kim's phone smoking, Martin offered to replace it, but Director Kim's face showed pain as he said, "I'm already this miserable, where would I get money to pay you back?" To keep his identity secret, Martin went to find Michelle. Michelle advised Martin that at the company he needed to stay humble and act normal like everyone else, so no one would suspect his identity. Unexpectedly, Sean overheard this, thinking a new employee who doesn't show off won't be respected. Martin pondered deeply but hadn't decided what to do when Director Kim asked if he had finished his work. He quickly bowed. Then he saw Sean was signaling Bao Bao to show himself. Getting caught between the two made Director Kim extremely angry. Martin felt a headache coming on. He just wanted to be a normal guy, but that seemed way too hard. Turns out, Martin didn't want to take over the family business easily. He seriously looked at his dad and said that since he was born, he hadn't even earned a single cent by himself. So, he felt he wasn't qualified to inherit Power Group. Unexpectedly, his dad handed him some money and said he'd already earned 10 million won. But this wasn't the life Martin wanted, so he joined a rival company. Martin wanted to succeed on his own, but now he faced a tough problem: how to hide his identity. Feeling troubled, he went to Director Kim's coffee machine. He heard from coworkers that if you want coffee, you have to buy it here. Martin had never had ready-made coffee, so he was a bit worried it might taste bad. But to his surprise, the moment he took a sip, he tasted something rich and refined. Martin didn't expect an ordinary person could enjoy such a flavor. His coworkers were fiddling with the AI speaker from Power Group. Nam thought it was a waste of money on some useless gadget. Martin couldn't help but say this was Power Group's ambitious product, and then started hyping it nonstop. Everyone was shocked that Martin knew so much about it. Then a female coworker said this speaker could distinguish the voice of the chairman of Power Group. Martin laughed and denied it, saying this product didn't have that function. But unexpectedly, the AI speaker immediately recognized Martin as the chairman, leaving him totally helpless. The speaker of Power Group. Martin smiled and denied that this product had such a feature. Unexpectedly, the AI speaker directly identified Martin as the chairman, frustrating him greatly. A coworker was checking the speaker when suddenly it malfunctioned. It started playing music and couldn't be turned off. Seeing this, Martin rushed over to check it out. When Martin spoke, the speaker suddenly said, "Hello, Chairman." Panicked, Martin quickly grabbed it, ready to turn it off. But the speaker kept introducing Martin as the heir of the group until he smashed it into pieces. The coworkers around were stunned, not knowing what just happened. Martin was deeply moved. He went to Michelle and said he didn't know how to keep living here, but now it seemed like he'd found some joy. Michelle thought Martin meant her, but the joy he was talking about was the can of coffee. She was still drinking. Director Kim invited Martin to take a hot bath. Suddenly, Director Kim ducked underwater and said, "There's no way AI would enter a public bath wearing underwear. If the boss found out, you'd definitely get kicked out." Martin's forced expression showed he had to do this to seem normal. Surprisingly, Director Kim suddenly stood up and asked if Martin had never been to a sauna before. Since Martin was afraid of being exposed, he obediently agreed. But Director Kim suddenly wanted to give Martin a back massage. Hearing a loud noise behind, Martin felt like a prisoner about to be sentenced. Director Kim hit Martin's head hard. Martin felt numb for a few seconds and then frowned. This feeling was actually quite nice. The back felt both sore and pleasurable. White flakes fell and piled up. This was a kind of bliss even Himalayan pink salt scrubs couldn't match. Martin felt enlightened. Director Kim's loud screams brought him back to reality. She told him it was now his turn. Martin silently turned around and started massaging Director Kim's back. But Martin was so eager that it annoyed Director Kim. Honestly, giving someone a back massage requires skill. Afterwards, they went to eat together, but when Martin saw the giant smelly soybean soup in front of him, he started breaking out in hives. Director Kim found it strange and asked if Martin's mom had never cooked soybean soup for him. Martin said he'd never eaten food his mom cooked, which made Director Kim feel really sorry for him. Poor Martin hadn't even had a home-cooked meal before having to leave his mom. Then Director Kim said it wasn't Martin's fault for not having parents, and that he'd teach Martin everything little by little. Martin frowned, thinking that since his house had a private chef, his mom obviously never cooked for him. Then he started to stand out. Director Kim felt something was off and asked if Martin's mom had never cooked soybean stew for him. Martin said he'd never eaten food his mom made, which made Director Kim feel really sorry. Poor Martin hadn't even gotten to eat his mom's cooking before having to leave her. Then Director Kim added that it wasn't Martin's fault he didn't have parents. He promised to gradually teach Martin everything. Martin frowned, thinking maybe his family had a private chef, so his mom never actually cooked for him. Before Martin could think more, Director Kim carefully mixed the stew with rice and fed it to him. Martin put on a pained, enduring expression, but suddenly a strange flavor spread across his taste buds. He was surprised it actually tasted delicious. So, he finished it all happily. While the two were discussing work, tension rose as Martin was challenged to a game of rock, paper, scissors, and Martin lost. He couldn't believe it. Martin was the sole heir to the Power Corporation, rich and smart, yet he lost this game. Earlier, it was because he wasn't himself not knowing how to play. But now, Nam came over inviting everyone to play a game where the loser gets a playful spanking. Martin teased, shocked that someone lost all 14 rounds. All of them! Just then, the AI speaker mocked him. Even an AI dares to roast him? He swore revenge. Martin looked at the wound on his back, hearing the mocking laughter of his colleagues echoing in his ears. He used to dominate the racetrack. Even boat races couldn't beat him. Yet, Martin lost these silly games? He grabbed his phone and called Michelle, asking if she wanted to clear all her debts. Within 3 minutes, he wanted her to show up right in front of him immediately. No sooner had he hung up than the doorbell rang. Michelle appeared at his door in training gear. Martin was stunned when Michelle suddenly asked loudly, "Do you want to become the king of games?" Martin instantly yelled back, "I do!" Then, she threw him the outfit. The grueling training began. Quick hands, sharp eyes, climbing stairs, and playing rock, paper, scissors nonstop. Martin had never pushed himself this hard in his life. His face flushed bright red from the effort. And so, he kept practicing all night. The first morning light streamed into the room. Seeing Martin nodding off, Michelle made him play rock, paper, scissors again. This time, Martin won. The two got excited, shaking hands, promising they'd be champs. In the elevator, coworkers debated if the AI would go to the sauna with Director Kim. Martin sensed the chance. He wanted to play fast and sharp to pick the loser. Squatting, he thought he had it in the bag. But in the sauna, Martin painfully closed his eyes and accepted the spanking from Director Kim. Turns out, the new guy in the room didn't get to choose the game. At work, Natalie's stomach suddenly hurt badly. She wanted to use the restroom, But coworkers kept crowding her, asking question after question. Suddenly, all the coworkers showed discomfort. They'd just caught a whiff of AI's fart. Natalie felt so embarrassed seeing their expressions, she didn't know where to hide to save face. Unexpectedly, Sean smiled and took the blame for her. The coworkers yelled at Sean, but he didn't care at all. Sean quietly handed Natalie a tissue roll. Natalie looked at him dumbfounded as he focused on his computer. She thought this guy was genuinely adorable. That night, arriving home, Natalie's mind was still full of images of Sean. He had protected her that morning, and even the television in front of her seemed to be playing their drama scene. Just as the drama was about to show a key scene, the doorbell rang. Natalie opened and saw Sean had come back from the supermarket with some meat. He'd bought some pork belly and even brought her a box. But this gesture felt oddly suspicious to Natalie. She slammed the door and messaged her two best friends, asking how to tell if someone likes you. Her friends quickly replied that whenever she looked at him, he was probably looking at her too. Sure enough, Sean was sneaking glances at Natalie. She panicked, hiding behind documents, but Sean's gaze caught her. Startled, she accidentally dropped her pen. Natalie hurriedly bent down to pick it up, telling herself it was just a coincidence. Sean told her she looked beautiful. Natalie blushed, wide-eyed, looking at him. Unexpectedly, Sean pointed at the Firestar lamp in her hand. Turns out, he was complimenting that. But in her mind, Natalie's thoughts flooded with what her friends said last night. After complimenting her beauty, he'd changed the subject. Her face instantly grew serious. She couldn't bring herself to outright reject him, so she gave him the Firestar lamp. Sean held her hand, thanking her profusely. After thinking it over, she decided to be clear. She thanked him for liking her but said if he didn't want to get hurt again, they should stop here. Sean misunderstood, thinking Natalie regretted it and wanted the Firestar lamp back. This embarrassed her deeply. Natalie angrily went to find her two best friends and told them about Sean. They kept saying nonsense that just annoyed Cho. Michelle smiled mysteriously and said love is like a car accident, it just happens if it wants to. That's why some people, when love arrives, they go through a denial phase, completely refusing to admit their feelings. Michelle thinks Natalie has already hit that stage. To be sure, people always act like they like someone. Natalie immediately recalled how recently. She kept wearing clothes similar to Sang-shik's. The two looked like a real couple, even crossing legs and neck rubbing were the same. Then Michelle continued, explaining the second rule. The carotid artery in mammals subconsciously reveals vulnerability to the person they like. It shows trust and closeness. In her head, Natalie kept replaying past moments that were exactly like this. Then Michelle went on to the last point. When talking, Natalie would always unconsciously turn her body toward the other person. Natalie confirmed she was in love with Sang-shik. Back then, she got drunk and accidentally broke her high heels. Sang-shik was super eager, insisting on carrying her home, but after just a few steps, he heard Helen call out and ended up making Natalie fall. She was furious, her arm white and injured. Natalie couldn't move anymore. The doctor said it was too late, and her face darkened. Natalie thought she was about to die, but it turned out the doctor was just late, which affected the doctor's shift end time. When she left the hospital room, Natalie scolded Sang-shik, saying ever since she moved next to him, she's only had bad luck. Sang-shik quickly apologized and kindly brought her a pair of slippers. Seeing Sang-shik care so much, Natalie instantly forgave him. Unexpectedly, the slippers he brought were massage slippers. Natalie wore Sang-shik's shoes, and they went home together. Sang-shik gently held the keys to open the door for her. He was worried she might be hurt and alone, which would be inconvenient. Suddenly, Natalie panicked. She couldn't resist. What if this man suddenly harassed her? She didn't know what to do. While lost in thought, the babysitter Sang-shik found arrived. Seeing the babysitter made Natalie furious. How could Sang-shik trust someone so pretty to take care of her? But Sang-shik said Aziz used to be a nurse at a hospital, so he'd surely take good care of her. Aziz was really attentive. The next day, Aziz just finished grilling meat, and the aroma immediately made Natalie crave it. He fed her a piece. It was seriously delicious. Suddenly, Natalie noticed Aziz's tone sounded like he was talking to a pet. She quickly asked which hospital he worked at. As she guessed, he worked at a veterinary hospital. Natalie angrily scolded Aziz for treating her like a dog. After work, Sang-shik visited Natalie. He brought fried chicken, but Sang-shik looked different somehow. After feeding Natalie, he kindly brought a glass of water. Unexpectedly, Natalie kept licking the water, and Sang-shik couldn't help but laugh. Aziz gave Sang-shik a strange look and asked why he was laughing. The next day, Aziz arrived carrying a bunch of bags full of pet supplies, but suddenly remembered he left something at the supermarket. So Aziz rushed out. Natalie checked the stuff, and while turning around chewing on a toy, she accidentally found a bank card with Sang-shik's name. That explained why Aziz had been so devoted, buying all those great things for her was actually Sang-shik paying for them. When Natalie found out the truth, she felt so confused inside. After finishing work, Sang-shik was eager to go home but got dragged out drinking by coworkers. He finally finished and rushed home, only to see the bank card on the table. Natalie knew everything and angrily asked Sang-shik if he really thought that would make her happy. Sang-shik tried to explain, but Natalie already smelled alcohol on him and thought he'd caused her injury by getting drunk and partying. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Natalie stood up wanting to kick Sang-shik out, but he was too drunk. Sang-shik begged Natalie to calm down and took responsibility. But whenever he saw Helen, Sean wanted to explain, but Natalie smelled alcohol on him. She started thinking Sean caused her broken arm. Her arm was broken, yet he happily went drinking and partying. The angrier she got, the more she wanted to kick Sean out, but he was too drunk. Sean begged Natalie to calm down and said he'd take responsibility. Yet, whenever he saw Helen, Sean couldn't control himself. Natalie started imagining things. Panicked, Natalie chased Sean away. Then Sean suddenly remembered Natalie. Natalie still had to take her medicine, so no matter what she said, he had to help her finish it. Seeing Sean like that, Natalie's heart was a mess. After helping Natalie take her medicine, Sean turned and held her hand. This time, Sean sincerely apologized to Natalie. He'd been worried about her all day. Even their co-workers asked what had happened with Sean, but he didn't know how to answer. Looking at Sean in front of him, Natalie suddenly felt a surge of feelings. She wanted them to clear everything up. Sean hadn't even caught Natalie's meaning when she suddenly kissed him on the lips. Sean looked surprised at Natalie. He still hadn't understood what just happened. Natalie sighed and said Sean really was useless. Martin was serious, but right then, Sean's wealthy heir father appeared. This morning, his wealthy father suddenly revealed everything Sean had done at Ghost. That means someone must be reporting all of Martin's actions to him. Martin kept thinking but couldn't figure out who that someone was. Director Kim always made a show of things when dealing with Martin. He seemed nice, but it could just be a cover-up to hide the truth. As for Sean, Martin thought someone as clueless as him couldn't be an informant, but maybe he was just pretending. The manager always lost at stocks, so money would definitely motivate someone like him. Manager Steven always had a cold exterior. Maybe this was just her fabrication. Looking around the meeting room, Martin felt anyone could be a suspect. After class, Martin was about to ask the secretary to investigate when he overheard Michelle on the phone. He started to suspect her. At that moment, Michelle suddenly noticed Martin was eavesdropping. She pretended she just arrived, but Michelle looked genuinely scared. She hurriedly pushed the door open and stepped outside. Martin recalled everything since they met Kangi acting alongside the top actors and how their meeting seemed way too coincidental. This possibility was really high. Martin picked up his phone and ordered the other party to prepare all information about Michelle within 3 minutes. Sitting in the car, Martin checked Michelle's profile. At that time, she was losing weight. Kangi had trained in many martial arts, like judo, taekwondo, and aikido. Her experience mostly involved practicing at power. Sure enough, all clues pointed to Kangi. Being connected to Martin's father, his secretary cautiously reminded him that not everything with power belonged to his family. Martin glared at his secretary and said the most important thing was that Michelle sent money home to her grandmother every month. Someone struggling financially like her definitely would have motivation to earn money. Everything really matched up. Martin guessed that at 8 p.m. tonight, Michelle would definitely contact his father. The secretary and Martin carefully followed behind Michelle. They thought their surveillance was super discreet and perfect, but in the end, Michelle still discovered them, so Martin had to get out of the car and chase after her. He followed her all the way to a small alley. Unexpectedly, 4 rough young thugs appeared there. Martin whistled casually, as if nothing was wrong. He tried to slip past them to escape, but he was blocked. The thugs complimented his clothes for looking top tier, then surrounded him and stripped him of everything. Martin revealed his identity, but of course, the thugs didn't believe he was the son of the power group chairman. Martin stood tall, walking down the street. Finally, Martin found Michelle. As he called out to her, suddenly his pants slipped down. Thinking he was some kind of pervert, Michelle hit him. She quickly sat down and slapped his face. Then she handed him a green tracksuit to change into. Michelle told Martin there were a lot of suspicious people around. At this point, Martin looked at Michelle. Before she could react, she had already prepared to lead him away. Unexpectedly, the thugs from before suddenly appeared again. The thugs obviously had no clue how strong Martin was. Seeing him so easy to bully, they tried to rob him again. The 2 thugs fought over the weapon in hand when suddenly a mosquito racket flew out of Martin's bag. He quickly hid behind Michelle, but he still didn't feel safe enough, so Martin grabbed a lamppost. Meanwhile, Michelle charged straight ahead and skillfully took care of the thugs. Then she grabbed the girl opposite her, surprising Martin. Martin was amazed by Michelle's skills. He ran quickly to her, but unexpectedly, 2 motorbikes showed up out of nowhere. They were backup for the thugs. Michelle grabbed Martin, urging him to run. Today was Martin's first time going on a business trip with Sean. Just before leaving, Sean, who was driving, politely said it would be a while before they arrived, so Martin could rest. Unexpectedly, Martin lay down, making Sean annoyed. He said although he didn't want to use seniority to pressure a newbie, logically, as the senior driver, Martin should sit in the passenger seat. He should be responsible for chatting with Martin. Realizing this was a bit rude, he decided to sit in the back, which made Sean even angrier. He felt like he was just a chauffeur driving his boss on a business trip. Sean pretended to ignore him, but Martin didn't even glance over. After a while, Martin returned to the passenger seat. He looked at Sean, who was yawning from sleepiness. When sleepy, Sean asked if he wanted him to call the driver to take over. Sean laughed and said their business trip funds weren't enough to pay for a hired driver. But Martin said the driver was his, so calling him wouldn't cost extra. Sean agreed, so Martin called his secretary. Unexpectedly, the secretary said the chairman had ordered that as long as Martin hadn't returned to the power group, he shouldn't expect any support from the family. Martin suddenly felt a bit scared, while Sean thought Martin was just bragging. Young people always like to show off, so Sean could understand. Then the two arrived at the partner company for a meeting. Unexpectedly, a VIP foreign guest came. Just by looking at him, they told Martin he was a prince. The VIP also said he had seen Martin on television. Martin got a bit flustered and quickly greeted him in German. Martin said he came here as, he's an employee at Ghost Corporation, not the heir to Power Corporation, so Martin hopes he won't reveal his true identity. The VIP guest actually thought Martin was deep undercover as the boss of Rundirp, but he still agreed to help Martin keep the secret. Martin breathed a sigh of relief and quickly said he'd met this guest before while traveling abroad. But today, fate brought them back together. Unexpectedly, the VIP said he didn't know him at all. Martin was shocked and hurriedly bowed his head. Martin apologized to the VIP, realizing he had dared to lie in front of a business partner. Later that night, Sang Zeech took Martin to a motel. Martin had never stayed in one before. It was such a small place, and Martin was curious. He asked the boss which floor the gym was on. The boss looked puzzled, thinking Martin was causing trouble, so Martin just pulled out his bank card to pay. The boss almost lost it. It was just small change, but Martin insisted on paying by card. The boss swiped the card and told him it was blocked. Turns out his family had really cut off all financial support. Sang Zeech was increasingly suspicious of Martin's odd behavior. He told Martin if he needed anything, just say so. Sang Zeech told Martin to reach out if he needed help. After their business trip, the two still made it back in time. At the colleagues' dinner, Martin kept staring at Kung Mi. No matter what, he couldn't let her drink alcohol this time. She only drank water and didn't touch a drop of alcohol. Near the end of the party, Martin suddenly noticed a colleague's action, realizing Kung Mi had actually been drinking alcohol. At that moment, she grabbed the door handle and left. Then Kung Mi hit pause and snatched the microphone. Martin panicked and tried to stop her, but two people sitting next to him held him back. He struggled but couldn't break free. No matter what, he couldn't escape. She said she had a secret to tell. She claimed she had already finished a plate of chicken noodles outside before coming here. Martin sighed in relief but then suddenly said that he had never eaten chicken noodles before. He panicked, grabbed the remote, and deliberately turned on noise to cause interference. She said he was actually the heir to Power Corporation. Martin felt utterly desperate. All the colleagues turned to look at him in disbelief. Director Kim sat up suddenly and asked Martin who he really was. Right then, Sang Zeech started telling stories from their business trip. Martin said he had his own driver and even knew VIP guests on the partner side, but it was all just bragging. Everyone burst out laughing. Martin didn't know whether to be happy or sad. He thought his secret was out, but no one believed it. He looked at Kung Mi. Now Martin finally understood. No wonder his heart always raced when he was with Kung Mi. It was all because of the pressure she put on him. He was always on high alert. When Kung Mi woke up, he asked if she was really drunk or just following her dad's orders. What did she mean by mentioning power and money in that call before? Martin was flustered and tried to change the subject. He blamed her for putting too much pressure on him. Kung Mi was surprised, and Martin felt a bit embarrassed. He stayed silent but kept probing. Suddenly, the two froze for a long moment. Then Kung Mi slapped Martin. He touched his face and stared at her in disbelief. Martin didn't understand this heartache. Meanwhile, Sang Zeech and Natalie were showing affection, but Aziz saw them. Aziz even congratulated them on how quickly they were moving, but Natalie explained it was just a misunderstanding. When she was in France, she liked greeting people that way. Aziz asked if anyone really greets like that while burying their heads so deep. Natalie, embarrassed, changed the subject. She said her hand cast was off, so she didn't need care anymore. Natalie sent the two away. Unexpectedly, Aziz laughed and said before leaving that she hadn't said goodbye to him. Aziz said if Nate's gaze could kill, he'd be dead already. But he still wasn't satisfied. This greeting style was different from Sang Zeech's. Sang Zeech hurriedly pushed Aziz away. Now Sang Zeech was lying on the bed, but his mind was full of that scene. The more he thought about it, the more embarrassed he got. He couldn't hold it in anymore and messaged Nara, but he didn't know what to say. The more Sean thought about the recent scene, the more embarrassed he got. He couldn't hold it in and texted Nara, but he didn't know what to say. If he confessed right away, it'd be too sudden. If he asked what that kiss meant, it might seem awkward. After some thought, Sean decided to just text, "Sorry." Natalie waited so long, but he only sent 2 words. She got mad and punched the air. Meanwhile, Sang was preparing a smooth confession. Unexpectedly, Naya angrily said she'd taken the wrong medicine and even made him explain it to Aziz. The next day, Sean happened to meet Natalie at the machine. He felt like she was glowing. Sean was dazed, then looked at Helen, whom he used to like, but then, at the meeting, everyone was discussing discount offers for couples. But how could they be sure the pairs were really couples? One colleague suggested a kiss would prove it. But Sean argued that nowadays, kissing doesn't really prove a couple's status. He even deliberately asked Natalie if that was true. Natalie quickly nodded, then leaned back in her chair, saying these days, even people who aren't couples can kiss. All the colleagues looked confused, not knowing what was going on between the two. Suddenly, Michelle said she had a friend looking for love and planned to set Sean up. Natalie's reaction was fierce. But surprisingly, Sean said he wanted to go right after work. Sean was getting ready to go on a blind date. Unable to hold back, Natalie asked if he really wanted to go. Sean hesitated a bit, then asked if Natalie felt uncomfortable. She blushed and denied it. Unexpectedly, Sean instantly brightened up, spun around, and left Natalie standing there, angry and alone. Sean had never been on a date before, so he was a bit awkward. Just as he was about to take a sip of alcohol to calm his nerves, he suddenly saw Natalie's reflection in his glass. Sean then threw the drink straight in her face. He hurriedly grabbed a tissue to wipe her face, making her realize he thought she was ugly. Sean couldn't take it anymore and bluntly told Natalie that lately he couldn't do anything right because all he saw when he opened his eyes was her face. He asked if that kiss was just an accident. Unexpectedly, Natalie got angry, saying he was the one who apologized first. Sean said, "What else can I say? I already apologized." Then he quickly explained that he said sorry because it was his first kiss and he was afraid she would think he wasn't good at kissing. Natalie said he's grown up but still has zero dating experience. Sean's face turned serious. Because Aziz ruined that day, Sean felt they still couldn't fully understand each other's feelings. The only way to be sure was to try again. Natalie suddenly panicked and awkwardly suggested changing the subject. Sean didn't let her complain any further. He took the initiative and kissed her. In Korea, there's a legend that when the coldest girl in the company smiles, no matter how tough the project is, it will succeed. To make their manager smile, Director Kim tried to be funny. Everyone burst out laughing, but the manager kept a cold face. Director Kim didn't know how to make her laugh, so Sean pretended to come beside her. He deliberately showed off his matching watch. Unexpectedly, Natalie's expression changed. She told him not to overthink, because they still weren't officially a couple. Sean said they've kissed twice already. Natalie quickly covered his mouth. It turned out to be the assistant walking by. The assistant noticed their awkwardness and told them not to mind him. So the two started using signals to talk. Natalie looked annoyed, saying, "You guys are new here and already demanding an exclusive contract? Our company has only been cooperating casually with others for 5 years. Now you want me to change?" Sean quickly said they've already collaborated twice. The two glanced at the assistant standing behind. Natalie sighed and said that now the only thing left is for the two companies to negotiate more deeply. Hearing that, Sean immediately asked if they could have a deeper discussion tonight, saying it would be better for future cooperation. Then Natalie nodded and told Sean to send her the time and place by email. The assistant behind looked puzzled. He felt something was off between them. They didn't really seem to be just discussing work. Sean looked at the assistant across and suddenly asked if he had ever been in love. The assistant shook his head, so Sean asked again if he had a girlfriend. Sean shyly said, "Well, kinda." Then he told the assistant that when he meets that special someone, just thinking about her will make him smile, and even when he's with her, his heart will race. That's when he'll know what love feels like. Sean was asked if he had a girlfriend. He shyly said, "Well, kind of." Sean told Martin that once he meets that person, just thinking about them makes him smile unconsciously. Even when he's with them and his heart races, that's when he'll understand what love really feels like. Michelle accidentally touched Martin's hand, making his heart race. Martin asked Sean if this was what a crush felt like. Sean quickly nodded and told Martin to treat the girl who makes him feel that way well. But Martin said he already had a fiancée. Of course, Sean thought Martin was just starting to brag again. That night, while colleagues gathered for drinks, Sean secretly called Natalie out, saying he wanted to talk about their situation. Natalie told Sean her feelings were simple. She didn't want to be a pawn. So she hoped they could both calm down and make sure this wasn't just her feeling lonely for too long and imagining feelings for the other person. After leaving the karaoke bar, Sean suddenly remembered Ra had left some documents at the office. Natalie was about to go home alone when Sean said he didn't dare to go to the office at night. Natalie was stunned. She couldn't believe he was this grown-up and still afraid of the dark. Sean said without her, what else could he do? Both felt there was some hidden meaning in their words. Natalie quickly said she wasn't an easy girl. She didn't expect him to stare at her without blinking. Then he picked up a lip balm and applied it to his lips. Natalie swallowed nervously, and they both eagerly leaned into each other, teasing over a small desk. Natalie pushed Sean away. Sean moved to another spot, but then they started going at it again. Papers scattered all over the floor, and in no time, the small room couldn't fit two more. They moved into the meeting room, getting so close that there was no space left. At that moment, two confused heads peeked out from under the table. They looked at Sean and Natalie hugging and felt super awkward. Director Kim staggered forward. Both Sean and Natalie panicked. They thought they'd been caught, but then Director Kim, drunk, asked if they were fighting. He looked at Sean and said, since Natalie is his senior, he should cut her some slack. Sean nodded frantically. But Manager Mark stood up and asked if Sean's lips were hurt. Natalie was extremely embarrassed. Director Kim thought Sean had been hit by Natalie, so he pulled them both down and poured a glass of wine, telling them to make up. Sean instantly downed his glass and said that from now on, they would never fight again. Suddenly, Manager Mark jumped up and said clearly, "You guys kissed." Natalie quickly pushed Manager Mark down onto the table to stop him from saying more. The next day, Sean and Natalie rode the elevator. Seeing it was crowded, Sean suddenly got a mischievous idea. He felt warmth from her hand and smiled happily. Her fingers couldn't help but poke him, but when Sean turned to look, he realized it was the department head's hand. Embarrassed, Sean said the department head's hand was a bit cold, so he needed to take better care of his health to avoid awkward situations like this. Sean designed a secret code just for the two of them. 2 blinks means, I like you, 3 blinks means, let's meet, and rapid left, right blinking means, that's enough. Sean thought he was so clever, sure his coworkers wouldn't figure it out, so they kept exchanging secret blinks during work, making coworkers think they were acting strange. The two used the excuse that the office was dry lately to avoid suspicion. At this moment, Michelle was grabbing documents from the cabinet when she suddenly noticed the bottle of alcohol she'd left earlier was missing. Director Kim was the first to speak, scolding Sean for asking random questions during work hours. But Manager Steven immediately sensed something was off. Manager Steven suspected Director Kim, who quickly denied it. Manager Steven glanced at Natalie, who looked flustered, so he then suspected her. Natalie hurriedly stood up to deny it, but Manager Steven calmly said, no worries, we'll just check the security cameras to find out. Natalie smiled awkwardly, wondering if someone really installed surveillance cameras in the office. Manager Steven pointed towards the cameras. Half the people in the office looked uncomfortable, no one wanted to be monitored. But Manager Steven ignored them and told Sean to call security to pull the footage. Natalie panicked and kicked off her high heels, even when she tried to stop it. All eyes were on her. Sean snatched the phone from Sean's hand, put on sunglasses, and admitted he was the one who stole the alcohol. He said that after dinner last night, he sneaked back to the office to take the alcohol and drink it. Then Sean pulled down his glasses and gave Natalie a signal to scold him. Natalie pretended to be upset and reluctant, but Sean kept signaling her to continue. So Natalie started scolding Sean harshly. Natalie looked panicked and immediately suspected Natalie, who quickly stood up to deny it. But Manager Steven calmly said it was fine. They'd find out by checking the security camera footage. Natalie smiled awkwardly and wondered if someone had really installed surveillance cameras in the office. Manager Steven just pointed to the camera. Half the people in the office were confused who wants their security camera footage checked. But Manager Steven didn't care and told Michelle to call security and extract the footage. Natalie freaked out and kicked off her high heels. Even then, she had to be held back under everyone's surprised eyes. Sean snatched the phone from Michelle, then put on sunglasses and admitted he was the one who stole the alcohol. After dinner yesterday, Sean returned to the company and secretly took some alcohol to drink. Then he lowered his glasses as a signal for Natalie to scold him. Natalie looked hurt and reluctant, but Sean kept signaling her to continue. So Natalie started scolding Sean harshly. Everyone gathered around and gave him a hard time. Sean endured the pain as Natalie scolded him twice. Then, with a serious face, he entered the office and said, Natalie, here's the data I finished. Natalie opened it and realized it was a plan for a weekend date for the two of them. On page 2, Sean has been diligently writing down the issues to watch out for in a relationship. To avoid suspicion, they're committed to carrying out a guerrilla strategy. Starting today, they'll begin this tense yet thrilling office romance. Martin just got his paycheck, but the money in his account keeps getting deducted. Martin was startled, thinking there was a thief. He hadn't even done anything, but his salary had already disappeared. The manager walked by laughing and said, this is totally normal for workers. For them, the moment the salary hits, it automatically transfers to various services and credit cards. In the end, there's not a single cent left. Martin is now backed into a corner, so he starts calculating. With a 2.5 million won monthly salary, he has to spend at least 7.5 million won. Luckily, he's from a wealthy family, because if it were a girl, she definitely wouldn't have enough to cover living expenses. Martin frowns. He thinks about how his dad stopped giving him allowance, and now he doesn't know how he's going to live. Martin asks Michelle for help to cut down his expenses. She goes through each spending category with him. Martin didn't expect that would be enough to survive. She tells him office workers can only make more money by working extra shifts. Martin nods, noting that, then goes to talk to Director Kim. Director Kim rolls his eyes, thinking Martin's lost it. Michelle has to try another approach. She opens a shopping website and shows Martin how to sort prices from low to high. Martin is shocked. He didn't expect so many things to be that cheap. Michelle also tells him that seniors don't always need coupons for discounts, but Martin must always remember to ask. If you do that, you can even get free coffee. If you're free, you can walk more because there are tons of apps that let you exchange steps for cash or discount coupons. And the most important thing is saving on food. Bringing your own meals to work can save you a lot. At that moment, the secretary tells Martin his dad wants him to come home this week. Martin is about to refuse but suddenly remembers something. When he gets home, he sees his dad looking serious. His dad says, could it be that he's going to be like his mom, always watching romantic movies, daydreaming, and thinking he'll fall for a poor but beautiful girl with a sweet, strong personality? Martin's mind immediately pictures the girl's face. Maybe he really did meet someone like that. Martin asks if that's not allowed, and of course, his dad says no. His dad also says he already has a wife, a fiancée. Suddenly, a knock at the door. Nina appears, cheerfully greeting Martin and his dad. Martin's dad demands he marry Nina immediately or return to the power group right away. Martin doesn't want to choose either. He turns to leave, but the kitchen starts bringing out dishes. Martin swallows his craving and stays, not wanting to be rude. He starts eating with Nina, but only takes a few bites before his mom tells the helper to clear the table and bring out leftovers. Martin panics, thinking that's such a waste. He says he has containers to take food home, but his mom sees them and assumes he just got paid and bought gifts for her. Martin feels shy and just gives his mom the boxes. Martin's mom is deeply touched. She feels her son has really grown up. When leaving, Nina looks at Martin as he steps out, thinking she has to warn that ungrateful girl. Meanwhile, Martin looks at his house door and silently thanks his dad for a free meal today. Martin grabs clothes to sell for money, but unexpectedly meets a buyer. Turns out it's the thug who got beaten by Michelle last time. As soon as the thug sees the two, he calls his gang to come over. They're ready to fight again. Martin wants to run, but accepts he can only make a little money from the step-counting app. Since he has no money, he also has no place to stay. He ends up becoming Aziz's roommate. Just then, Nina visits Martin. She sees the two wearing matching clothes and thinks they're a couple. Martin doesn't care and tells her to stop watching those cheesy dramas. Nina asks if the person he likes is Michelle. Martin anxiously asks what she told Michelle. Nina smirks and says Michelle is so reasonable, if Nina gives her some money, she'll go right away. But Martin doesn't care. He tells her to cut back on those melodramatic dramas. Then Nina asks Martin if the person he likes is Michelle. Martin urgently asks if she said anything to Michelle. Unexpectedly, Nina smirks and says Michelle is very understanding. She just needs a little money from Michelle, and she'll agree right away. Martin starts to overthink, then says if anything happens to Michelle, he won't forgive Nina. He then frantically goes looking for Michelle. He hopes nothing bad happens. Finally, Martin runs all the way to the gym. There, he sees Michelle. He wants to hug her but holds himself back. Martin lowers his head and says sorry to Michelle, but he's mistaken about who she island worried. Martin looks at Michelle. Michelle asks if Nina did anything to her. Michelle is confused, not understanding what's going on. She thinks Nina is being kind, since Nina gave her some vitamins. At home, Michelle takes out the vitamins and asks Martin if he wants some. Unexpectedly, she found the box stuffed full of money inside. At that moment, Michelle understood what Nina meant. The money, Michelle said she'd return it to her. But Michelle wanted to take a quick photo because she'd never seen so much money at once before. Martin stared at Michelle seriously. So reluctantly, she put the money down on the table. Michelle told Martin he had to explain clearly to Nina that they had nothing going on. But then Martin's expression changed. He didn't want to explain anything. Martin asked Michelle if she remembered the light downstairs in her house. Michelle looked blank. She recalled a few days ago when she was about to get home at night. The light suddenly turned on. Martin happily thought Michelle wouldn't have to come home in the dark anymore, which would make her happy. But Michelle thought someone had gone crazy and installed a light as bright as a stadium in the neighborhood. Michelle suddenly realized it was Martin who installed it. She misunderstood him. He wanted it so bright it blinded everyone. Martin shook his head, denying that. Michelle looked into Martin's eyes full of love and said, "I get it now." She realized he wanted to protect people from bad folks bothering others. Martin sighed helplessly and finally admitted he liked her. Michelle didn't hesitate and answered she didn't like him. Martin was stunned and hurriedly asked why. He thought it was because of his status putting pressure on her, but she shook her head, denying that, simply because Martin wasn't her type. Martin liked someone like Director Kim from Kook. Martin hugged the pile of money in his hands and burst into tears, trembling. The car arrived at the door, and the driver told him the total was 33,001. Martin cried even harder. He felt like nothing was going his way. At that moment, looking at the picture of Director Kim from Kook, he started training like crazy. Martin was determined to become like him, just with 8-pack abs. He was sure he could do it. Aziz saw Martin acting strangely and shook his head in disbelief. The next day, Michelle shyly asked Martin if she heard him yesterday. Martin seriously said, "Don't worry, from now on I'll just focus on work." Michelle sighed in relief, just as she was about to pour water. Martin rolled up his sleeves. Michelle was a bit surprised and asked if he was feeling hot, but he clenched his fists to show determination. Michelle looked helplessly at the man in front of her, having nothing else to say. The next day, Martin put his last coins into the vending machine, but when he pressed the button, nothing happened. Looking closely, he realized the price had gone up. Martin seriously thought that since his dad locked his credit card, he finally understood how it feels to be broke right after payday. Martin pushed a chair to block the way and rushed in front of Director Kim. "Hey, why did the price go up? Are you trying to make life harder for poor people?" Director Kim didn't understand what was going on. Colleagues stepped in to stop him, but Martin kept venting all his frustration. Director Kim never thought a wealthy guy like Martin could get this enlightened. The next day at work, Director Kim blocked Martin's way. Martin thought Director Kim was still mad about yesterday. But unexpectedly, Director Kim suddenly said they were all bad guys and asked where they'd gone last night without inviting him. Then Director Kim started acting clingy with everyone, making Michelle feel sick and rush straight to the bathroom. Meanwhile, the manager explained that the marketing head was suddenly transferred to another branch, so Director Kim might get promoted, and the promotion review mostly depended on staff evaluations. That's why Director Kim wanted everyone to give him high scores. Usually stingy, today he even bought coffee for the whole office. Director Kim took out his credit card and told Martin to order whatever he wanted, but Martin spent freely. Director Kim watched him, trying to hold back. He thought, just a few cups of coffee, but it costs so much. Martin also bought some food, which made Director Kim furious, but he had to hold it in until lunch. Natalie carefully prepared a lunchbox. Sean and the two of them secretly slipped away to a corner to enjoy some happy moments. Spending freely, Director Kim watches Martin and tries to hold back. He thinks, just a few coffees and it's already costing so much money. Martin even bought extra food, which drives Director Kim crazy, but he still holds his tongue until lunchtime. Natalie thoughtfully prepares a loving lunch for Sean. The two secretly slip away to a corner, ready to enjoy some happy moments. Just then, Martin and Michelle walk by, so the four of them end up eating together. When they open the lunchbox, the food looks a bit strange, but Sean picks up the odd item and praises it, saying it looks delicious. Martin says he has 2 sandwiches, so he can share one with Sean. Sean is deeply touched. As he reaches for the sandwich, Sean senses a murderous glare from Natalie. She quickly laughs it off and declines Martin's offer. That he had already eaten enough and didn't need a sandwich. Director Kim watched everyone moving around the office, giving last-minute performance reviews before work ended today. He stared at the clock, smug, knowing that in just a few seconds, he'd finally teach these employees a lesson. The clock finally struck 6 o'clock. Director Kim stood up in the middle of the office, frustrated with everyone over the past few days. He started calling out everyone's faults. Manager Mark Hong hurriedly reminded everyone that they still had until 6:30 to fix their reviews before Director Kim made decisions. At that moment, all the colleagues began typing furiously. Director Kim nervously told everyone he was just joking. A few days later, there was an announcement about personnel changes. Director Kim checked his phone and, sure enough, he wasn't the one getting promoted. Turns out, this round was based on education. He had been eliminated right at the resume stage. Director Kim collapsed in despair. Not only did he miss the promotion, but he also lost money. Martin looked at Director Kim's photo deeply, then sat quietly, thinking about what attracts women to Director Kim. At this moment, Michelle suddenly ran into trouble. Martin quickly helped her carry things into the meeting room. He tried to act strong, lifting the heavy stack of documents like it was a ton. Michelle frowned, watching him, trying to act tough in front of her. She finally spoke bluntly, saying that he liked Director Kim not because he was strong. Michelle asked Martin if he was copying Director Kim. Martin smiled and denied it. Michelle said she didn't like Director Kim's smile either. Just then, Sean called Martin outside. He put the stack of files down and started singing a song by Director Kim. Michelle continued, saying she didn't like Director Kim's voice either. This made Martin feel super embarrassed in the dim interrogation room. Sean seriously asked if Martin was the son of Chairman Blake from Power Corporation. Martin didn't panic and immediately denied it. But Sean got agitated and told Martin to stop pretending. Martin was actually a spy for Power Corporation. Apparently, their department's latest project had been leaked by Power Corporation beforehand. This proved there was definitely a mole inside. Sean believed, well, that mole was Martin because he followed Sean everywhere. Sean said the two had worked so closely together for so long, so Sean knew Martin wasn't that kind of person. Then Martin stood up and told Sean to trust him. Sean seemed genuinely moved. He hugged Martin. Martin endured the discomfort silently and quietly reached out to put his hand on Sean's back. But then Sean's expression suddenly changed. Sean warned Martin not to try anything inappropriate with him. Without solid proof, Sean decided to let Martin go for now. Just then, a VIP German guest recognized Martin and came looking for him. Apparently, he had seen a related news article. So the VIP guest also suspected Martin was a spy for Power Corporation. Martin quickly denied it and said a senior in the company was also doubting him, which gave him a huge headache. Suddenly, Sean appeared. Martin was shocked because Sean understood German. On a previous business trip, Martin said something, and Sean understood everything. Now, Sean used a translation app, called Martin over to a corner, and said he didn't want to say much. Whether Martin really was a spy or not, leaving the group now was the best choice. Sean looked sad they were struggling through this tough life. But for Martin, it was just an experience. Martin quickly grabbed Sean's hand and said he was just earning a living on his own. Surely, Martin didn't see this as a game. Martin hoped Sean would keep this a secret. Even though Martin wasn't a spy, if others found out, he'd definitely be in trouble. Sean nodded, agreeing. Just then, the elevator doors opened. Michelle saw Martin inside and hesitated a few seconds, then decided to step in. Michelle asked if Martin was still copying Director Kim. Martin hugged her head and said, "Of course." Michelle's eyelids twitched. She liked Director Kim not because of anything else, but simply because he was famous, a main member of a television show, someone who didn't even exist in real life. Martin bowed his head, feeling a loss, as if he finally understood. The next day, Michelle didn't look for. After getting a document, she asked Martin if he saw it, but unexpectedly he walked straight over, grabbed her hand, and said he left the document right here. Michelle was confused and about to take the document when he suddenly let go. He didn't know whether to apologize or confess his feelings. When Michelle finally confirmed that Martin was crazy, she didn't want to talk to him anymore. But Martin told Michelle to worship him instead. Michelle grabbed Martin's shirt sleeve and pushed him hard against the fridge. Martin's eyes widened, and his heart was pounding like he just ran a marathon. Michelle said she could never love someone so secretive like him. The two just weren't a match. So, Martin called all his coworkers together. He revealed a truth everyone had to know. He openly admitted he was the son of Chairman Blake from Power Group. His co-workers were stunned beyond belief. Then Director Kim said, "He's the Emperor." Martin felt so hurt. He looked at Michelle, hoping she'd help explain the truth. So Michelle showed Martin's family photo. Only then did the co-workers start to believe him. Director Kim angrily asked why Martin said he lived in a small room. Honestly, that 800 square meters house was really small to Martin. The manager found it odd why Martin suddenly confessed this. At that moment, Martin looked at Michelle. He didn't want to hide his secret anymore, his secret that he liked her. That night, Michelle drank bottle after bottle. Then she asked Martin, who sat across from her, if he could stay up late. Martin felt a little shy, thinking she wanted to get closer. Michelle seriously said it might hurt a bit. She said she'd start right away. Martin nodded anxiously, but Michelle started roasting Martin, saying he was the type of guy she'd never like, not just because he was his parents' spoiled son, but because he lacked empathy and was a neat freak. Michelle got more aggressive as she kept roasting him. Martin got scolded nonstop. He wanted to run, but it was too late. So, he just sat through the whole night of insults. The next day at work, Martin found a bouquet on his desk. He picked up the card and read that the sender called him Daddy. Martin didn't understand what was going on, or who'd suddenly call him that. He hurriedly said he needed to use the restroom. A coworker escorted him, having overheard Martin on the phone saying he wanted to bring someone into Power Group. Who would miss a chance like this with the wealthy heir? So the coworkers started trying to win Martin's favor. Only Director Kim didn't join in. Seeing others flatter him made Martin laugh. Then he started cursing at them. Martin felt uncomfortable. He never expected things would turn out like this. The insults kept coming, and Martin had no escape. He just sat there, enduring the whole night. Then the secretary asked if Martin had decided who he'd bring into Power Group yet. Just as he nodded, Michelle, dressed beautifully, walked up. Martin was so surprised. Michelle greeted him gently and waved her tiny hand. Martin's heart was filled with happiness. She thought if he saw her like this, he'd give up. But unexpectedly, Martin's face flushed red. The next day, Martin called all his coworkers again. He was about to announce something important. Manager Mark and others were tense, wondering if he'd take everyone away. But Martin said he'd stay at Ghost. He just wanted to stay for her, but the reason wasn't actually because of her. She still didn't believe him. To get Martin to give up on her, she didn't hesitate to badmouth herself, saying she didn't brush her teeth daily and just wiped them with a cloth. She only bathed properly once a year during Tet. Martin quietly said, "Michelle, you've misunderstood." Then he pulled out a tablet, explaining that since Chairman Blake was arrested for corruption, Martin could only stay here during this time. Michelle flicked her hair, her hands trembling. She quickly ran to the restroom. The coworkers guessed Michelle was just embarrassed. Martin hurried after her. Seeing Michelle sitting on the floor, Martin quietly sat beside her. Martin said he understood her. From now on, they'd start fresh as friends. A few months later, Martin suddenly hugged Michelle from behind. Just as Michelle relaxed, Martin turned his back. Michelle was caught off guard and a bit shocked, but Martin just smiled and said, "Let's be good friends." Then Martin took Michelle's hand but didn't wait for her to say anything. He immediately let go. Then he apologized and walked away. Michelle touched her flushed face, feeling the heat. And just like that, Martin had won her heart. Sean was taking off the outfit Natalie bought for him and turned his back to leave. But Natalie held on to him desperately, not expecting her parents to suddenly appear right then. Natalie's parents showed up unexpectedly. Natalie wanted to explain to her mom but didn't know what to say. The four of them sat down at the table. Sean froze like a statue. He clearly came to break up but didn't expect to meet Natalie's parents instead. Natalie tried to explain to them. Sean said it was just a bit hot earlier, so he took off his shirt, nothing inappropriate. But then Natalie's mom asked if the mole on Natalie's face looked like hers. Sean said yes. Then her mom asked if the mole on Natalie's butt was also like hers, and Sean again said yes. This sudden trap caught Sean off guard. Natalie got startled and accidentally got food on her clothes. She quickly made an excuse and ran to the bathroom. Natalie's dad told Sean not to be nervous and to just eat naturally. Sean breathed a sigh of relief, but then Natalie suddenly started vomiting in the bathroom. Natalie struggled to get the vegetable out of her teeth. Soon after, she came back to the table. Natalie wondered why the three of them were looking at her strangely. Her dad asked why she was nauseous. Embarrassed, she said she just couldn't keep anything down. Sean quickly knelt down. He said he would take responsibility. Then Sean held Natalie's hand and told her to trust him. He promised to work hard to earn money to buy formula. Natalie wondered what was going on. Surprisingly, both her dad and mom agreed. She felt like the three of them were talking about something completely different. Right then, Aziz suddenly called Natalie. Natalie told Sean that Aziz was looking for him. Her dad thought the baby was kicking inside her, and her mom assumed they already had a nickname for the baby at home with a very Western-sounding name. Natalie's dad was so happy he even thought about naming the baby Hyamin. Natalie didn't understand how they had gotten to the naming stage so fast. Not long ago, her coworkers suddenly watched surveillance footage. The two of them feared bad news leaking from the office. They were extremely panicked. Director Kim found it strange because the two kept blocking the screen while Sean and Natalie were still struggling. Suddenly, they saw Manager Mark and Manager Steven kissing. Everyone was shocked. No one expected the biggest office secret to be this. Because of the camera, Sean was also very exhausted. That's why he wanted to break up with Natalie. But her parents' surprise visit gave them a chance to make up. Natalie just got off work and got home. She opened the door and saw a candle and a note on the floor. Following the trail of candles, she found the last love note saying there were more outside. Natalie hurried out and found more notes posted outside. Each note recalled moments between the two that happened in this apartment. Natalie felt touched and vaguely guessed what Sean was trying to do. Natalie walked all the way to the door. Sean pushed the door open strongly, but she saw Aziz instead. Aziz was surprised she came so quickly. He hurried to warn Sean, but before Aziz could act, Natalie stopped him. Sean was a bit flustered since he wasn't ready yet, but Natalie didn't mind. She happily sat down, then reached out her hand to Sean. Although it seemed a bit rushed, as long as they were both happy, that was enough. After so many ups and downs, Martin decided to stay. This is where he can live and do meaningful things. Feeling happy is enough. After all the ups and downs, Martin decides to stay at Ghost. This is where he's able to live and do meaningful things. If he ever returns to Power, he'll bring his colleagues along, not just because he cares about them, but also because the girl he loves is here. The love story at the corner ends here. Thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye, and see you next time.